my channel Starwire Daily. Please share and subscribe and press the bell icon for new updates. You're Glen Powell, sitting at the peak of Hollywood's Golden Mountain. Top Gun: Maverick just catapulted you into the stratosphere of A-list fame. Anyone can wear the crown, just proved you can carry a romantic comedy on those perfectly sculpted shoulders. Your phone is buzzing nonstop with offers that would make seasoned actors weep with envy. And then, the ultimate question drops into your lap like a perfectly shaken martini. James Bond, the role that transforms mere mortals into cinematic legends. The character that has defined masculine sophistication for over 6 decades. But here's where our story takes an unexpected turn that no one saw coming. Glen Powell looked directly into the camera during a recent interview and did something that shocked the entire entertainment industry. He said no. Not just a polite thanks, but no thanks, but a deep, thoughtful explanation of why he believes he's fundamentally wrong for the most coveted role in cinema. And honestly, his reasoning is going to blow your mind and completely change how you think about casting, authenticity, and what it really means to honor an iconic character. Welcome back to Starwire Daily, where we dive deep into the stories that matter in Hollywood. I'm your host, and today we're unpacking one of the most refreshingly honest moments in recent celebrity history. Because when a rising star turns down James Bond, you know there's a story worth telling. Let's rewind to understand just how massive this moment really is. Glen Powell isn't just any actor riding a temporary wave of success. This is a man who has systematically conquered every genre Hollywood has thrown at him. From the testosterone-fueled cockpits of Top Gun, Maverick, where his hangman became the character everyone couldn't stop talking about, to the charming romantic leads that make audiences fall in love with love itself. But the James Bond conversation didn't start in some executive's office or during a formal audition process. It began, as many modern Hollywood stories do, with fan speculation that spiraled into a media frenzy. Social media exploded with side-by-side comparisons. Fan art appeared overnight. Betting odds were calculated. Glen Powell as Bond wasn't just a possibility. In the minds of many, it was inevitable. And you know what? On paper, it made perfect sense. Powell has the looks, that classic American leading man appeal with just enough edge to be dangerous. He's got the physicality, proven through his commitment to the intense training regimens for Top Gun. His charisma is undeniable, capable of commanding attention in scenes alongside Hollywood heavyweights. Plus, he's at that perfect career intersection where he's established enough to handle the pressure, but fresh enough to bring new energy to the franchise. But when the question was finally posed to him directly, Powell's response revealed something extraordinary about his character and his understanding of what James Bond truly represents. Look, Powell began, leaning forward with the kind of sincerity that cuts through Hollywood's typical PR speak. James Bond isn't just a role. It's a cultural institution. And that institution has very specific roots that I don't think I can authentically represent. Now, before we dive deeper into his reasoning, let's acknowledge what a rare moment this was. In an industry where actors will often say anything to land a career-defining role, where publicists craft responses designed to keep every door open, Glen Powell chose radical honesty. And his honesty revealed a level of cultural awareness and professional maturity that honestly left many industry insiders stunned. Powell's first point centered on authenticity. Not just personal authenticity, but cultural authenticity. James Bond, he argued, is inherently and unapologetically British. Not just in accent or mannerisms, but in a deeper sense of cultural identity that informs everything about the character. The dry wit, the understated confidence, the particular way Bond navigates social hierarchies. These aren't just performance elements you can learn in dialect classes. There's a reason, Powell explained, why every successful Bond has brought something genuinely British to the role, even when they've added their own interpretation. It's not about being born in Britain necessarily, but about understanding and embodying a specific cultural perspective that I don't think I possess. This wasn't false modesty or strategic positioning. This was an actor acknowledging that some roles require more than talent and preparation. They require a cultural fluency that can't be manufactured. But Powell's reasoning went even deeper touching on something that reveals his sophisticated understanding of character development and storytelling. He talked about the internal life of James Bond, the emotional landscape that drives the character's actions and reactions. Bond's relationship with authority, with tradition, with the concept of service to crown and country. These aren't just plot points, Powell continued. They're the psychological foundation that everything else is built on. And I realized that my instincts, my natural responses to conflict and duty and moral ambiguity, they come from a very different place. What Powell was describing is something that acting coaches spend years trying to teach, the difference between playing a character and inhabiting a character. He recognized that his American perspective, his way of processing heroism and sacrifice and loyalty, would fundamentally alter the DNA of James Bond in ways that might not serve the character or the franchise. And here's where Powell's honesty becomes even more impressive. He didn't just stop at cultural differences. He dug into his own strengths as an actor and acknowledged that they might not align with what Bond requires. I'm naturally more expressive, Powell admitted, more openly emotional. Bond's power comes from restraint, from what he doesn't say as much as what he does. That's a muscle I haven't fully developed, and I'm not sure it's one that comes naturally to me. This level of self-awareness is extraordinary in Hollywood, where confidence often masks deep insecurities and where actors are trained to believe they can transform into anyone. Powell was essentially saying that transformation has limits, and those limits should be respected. But perhaps the most revealing part of Powell's explanation came when he talked about the weight of the Bond legacy. This wasn't about being intimidated by the role's prominence. Powell has proven he can handle pressure and spotlight. This was about something deeper. Every actor who's played Bond has brought their generation's interpretation of masculinity, of heroism, of what it means to be sophisticated and dangerous, Powell reflected. But they've all done it within this very specific framework. I look at myself, and I think I'd be trying to fit into a framework rather than naturally filling it. The honesty was striking. Here was an actor at the height of his career trajectory, acknowledging that some opportunities, no matter how career-defining, aren't right if they require you to betray your authentic self as a performer. Industry insiders had mixed reactions to Powell's statements. Some praised his maturity and self-awareness. Others wondered if he was making a strategic mistake, turning down what could be the role of a lifetime. But what became clear in the days following his comments was that Powell had sparked a larger conversation about casting, authenticity, and cultural representation in major franchises. The James Bond franchise has always been a barometer for broader cultural conversations. From Sean Connery's rugged Scottish charm to Daniel Craig's blonde, blue-eyed intensity, each Bond has reflected not just the actor's interpretation, but the era's definition of masculine appeal. Powell's refusal to pursue the role wasn't just about his personal fit. It was a statement about respecting the character's cultural identity in an increasingly globalized entertainment landscape. What made Powell's position even more interesting was how it contrasted with typical Hollywood ambition. In an industry where actors are often criticized for taking on roles outside their cultural background, Powell was voluntarily stepping back from an opportunity that no one would have questioned him pursuing. But here's what's really fascinating about this entire situation. Powell's reasoning revealed just how deeply he understands his own brand and career trajectory. By acknowledging what he's not right for, he was actually reinforcing what he is perfect for. Glen Powell has built his career on a very specific type of American charm. It's confident without being arrogant, competitive without being cruel, heroic without being sanctimonious. It's the kind of leading man energy that works perfectly in stories about American dreams, American conflicts, American ways of processing honor and duty. His breakout moment in Top Gun, Maverick, wasn't just about looking good in a flight suit, though he certainly did that. It was about embodying a very particular American military archetype, the cocky pilot who learns humility, the competitor who discovers teamwork, the individual who finds his place within a larger mission. These are fundamentally American story arcs, rooted in American cultural values and American ways of understanding personal growth. Powell's instinct that these same qualities might not translate authentically to James Bond shows remarkable artistic integrity. And let's be honest, Powell's career is hardly suffering from this decision. If anything, his thoughtful approach to role selection is part of what makes him so compelling as a public figure. In an era of manufactured celebrity personas, Powell comes across as genuinely thoughtful about his craft and his place in the entertainment landscape. The romantic comedies he's chosen showcase his natural charisma and comedic timing. The action roles highlight his physical commitment and screen presence. Each project seems carefully selected to build on his established strengths, rather than forcing him into uncomfortable territory. But Powell's James Bond comments also revealed something interesting about the current state of the franchise itself. The search for the next Bond has become one of the most scrutinized casting processes in entertainment history. Every potential candidate is analyzed, debated, and dissected by fans and media alike. In this environment, Powell's voluntary withdrawal from consideration wasn't just refreshing, it was strategically smart. Rather than entering a prolonged speculation cycle that might not lead anywhere, he controlled the narrative around his own career trajectory. The entertainment industry took notice. Casting directors, producers, and fellow actors recognized Powell's move as a masterclass in professional positioning. By clearly articulating what he's not right for, he made it easier for industry professionals to envision what he would be perfect for. And the timing couldn't have been better. Powell's comments came at a moment when his star power was at its peak, meaning his words carried weight and generated meaningful discussion rather than being dismissed as sour grapes or false modesty. The fan reaction was equally telling. While some disappointed Bond enthusiasts expressed sadness at losing a potential candidate, the overwhelming response was respect for Powell's honesty and self-awareness. In an age of celebrity overreach and cultural appropriation concerns, his thoughtful approach to cultural authenticity resonated with audiences. Social media, which had initially buzzed with excitement about Powell as Bond, pivoted to celebrating his maturity and artistic integrity. Comments praised him for understanding the difference between wanting a role and being right for a role. But perhaps the most significant impact of Powell's statement was how it elevated the conversation around the Bond franchise itself. His thoughtful analysis of what the character requires culturally and emotionally reminded everyone why the role is so important and why casting decisions matter beyond simple star power or box office appeal. The James Bond character represents more than just action sequences and romantic encounters. Bond is a cultural ambassador, a representation of British sophistication and strength that carries diplomatic and artistic weight around the world. Powell's recognition of this responsibility showed a level of cultural sensitivity that many found refreshing. His comments also highlighted how much the entertainment landscape has evolved. Previous generations of actors might have pursued any high-profile role regardless of fit, relying on performance techniques and director guidance to make it work. Powell's approach suggested a new generation of actors who prioritize authenticity and cultural sensitivity in their career choices. This shift reflects broader cultural conversations about representation and authenticity in entertainment. Audiences are increasingly aware of and vocal about cultural appropriation, misrepresentation, and the importance of authentic casting. Powell's proactive acknowledgement of these concerns positioned him as an ally in these conversations rather than someone who needed to be educated or corrected. The ripple effects extended beyond Powell's individual career. Other actors began speaking more openly about roles they turned down or wouldn't pursue for similar reasons. The entertainment industry started having more nuanced conversations about the difference between diversity in casting and authentic representation. But let's not forget the practical implications of Powell's decision. By removing himself from Bond speculation, he freed himself to pursue projects that better align with his strengths and interests. This kind of strategic career management is rare in Hollywood, where the pressure to say yes to prestigious opportunities can override artistic judgment. Powell's upcoming projects reflect this thoughtful approach. Each role seems designed to showcase different aspects of his talent while building a cohesive career narrative. Rather than chasing prestige for its own sake, he's building a sustainable career based on authentic performances. The industry response has been overwhelmingly positive. Directors and producers have praised Powell's professionalism and self-awareness. Casting directors appreciate actors who understand their own range and limitations. Even competing actors have expressed respect for his honest approach to career management. What's particularly impressive is how Powell managed to withdraw from Bond consideration without closing any doors or burning any bridges. His explanation was so thoughtful and respectful that it actually enhanced his reputation within the industry. The James Bond producers, for their part, have remained diplomatically silent on Powell's comments. But industry insiders suggest that his thoughtful approach to the situation has only increased respect for him within the franchise's inner circle. When the right American role comes along in the Bond universe, perhaps a CIA ally or American agent, Powell would likely be at the top of their list. This brings us to an important point about Powell's strategy. By being clear about what he's not right for, he's making it easier for industry professionals to think of him for roles where he would be perfect. It's a reverse psychology approach that demonstrates sophisticated understanding of how Hollywood really works. The entertainment industry operates on relationships and reputation as much as talent and opportunity. Powell's handling of the Bond situation enhanced his reputation as a thoughtful, professional actor who understands both his craft and the cultural context of his work. This reputation will serve him well as he navigates the next phase of his career. The transition from rising star to established leading man is treacherous territory where many promising careers stall or implode. Powell's thoughtful approach to role selection suggests he's prepared for this challenge. His comments about James Bond also revealed his long-term thinking about career sustainability. Rather than chasing immediate prestige or payday, he's building a career foundation that can support decades of meaningful work. The entertainment landscape is littered with actors who took prestigious roles they weren't right for, only to see their careers suffer when the performances didn't connect with audiences. Powell's preemptive honesty about Bond suggests he's learned from these cautionary tales. But beyond career strategy, Powell's approach reflects genuine artistic integrity. He's treating acting as a craft that requires not just skill, but cultural sensitivity and self-awareness. This perspective elevates both his individual work and the industry's standard for thoughtful casting decisions. The conversation Powell started extends far beyond his individual career or even the James Bond franchise. He's contributed to important discussions about cultural authenticity, artistic integrity, and the responsibility that comes with representing iconic characters. In our globalized entertainment landscape, these conversations are more important than ever. Audiences around the world are increasingly sophisticated about cultural representation and authenticity. Powell's approach acknowledges this reality and respects audience intelligence. As we wrap up this deep dive into Glen Powell's fascinating decision to step away from James Bond consideration, it's worth reflecting on what this moment tells us about the current state of Hollywood and where it might be heading. Powell represents a new generation of actors who understand that success isn't just about landing the biggest roles, but about building authentic, sustainable careers that respect both their own artistic identity and the cultural significance of the characters they portray. His honesty about James Bond wasn't just refreshing. It was revolutionary in its own quiet way. In an industry often criticized for cultural insensitivity and artistic compromises, Powell showed that it's possible to be ambitious while still maintaining integrity. The entertainment industry is watching closely to see how Powell's career develops following this decision. Early indicators suggest that his thoughtful approach is paying off, with directors and producers expressing increased interest in working with an actor who demonstrates such professional maturity. For audiences, Powell's approach offers hope for more authentic, culturally sensitive casting decisions across the entertainment industry. When actors themselves advocate for authentic representation, it creates positive pressure for better decision-making at every level of production. And for Glen Powell personally, this moment may be remembered as the turning point where he transitioned from talented newcomer to respected industry professional whose opinion carries weight and whose decisions influence broader industry conversations. The James Bond franchise will eventually find its next star, and when that announcement comes, it will likely be accompanied by the kind of thoughtful discussion that Powell's comments helped normalize. The conversation has been elevated, and that's a win for everyone who cares about authentic, meaningful entertainment. So there you have it, the inside story of why Glen Powell said no to James Bond, and why that decision reveals everything you need to know about the future of Hollywood casting and cultural representation. It's a story about integrity, authenticity, and the courage to know yourself in an industry that often rewards pretending to be someone you're not. What do you think about Glen Powell's decision? Was he right to prioritize cultural authenticity over career opportunity? Or do you think he missed out on the chance of a lifetime? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I genuinely want to know where you stand on this fascinating intersection of career strategy and artistic integrity. And if you found this deep dive as compelling as I did, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to StarWire Daily for more behind-the-scenes stories that reveal the real personalities behind your favorite stars. We're here every week with the kind of thoughtful entertainment journalism that goes beyond the surface to explore what really drives Hollywood's biggest names. Until next time, keep watching the stars, because sometimes the most interesting stories happen when they choose not to shine in the spotlight everyone expects.